Here we are with our June update already, somehow. I hate unquantifiable goals, but here we are in June, just in the final days before the show, just working on overall balance and strength. We had another really fun outing to our Ranch Horse Show series in June. This is our first box class. This was the Novice Horse box, which if I remember correctly, I don't think we placed in May. But we drew the perfect cow, which you can see Willie the cowman is literally pushing this calf out the gate because it really did not want to go perform. So when I saw that little dairy cross come out that had very little run in it, I was actually quite excited because this is a perfect cow for Wes to step up and get some confidence on. So you can see that first turn there was a little slow, but it was extremely correct. We got a little head of steam going on that one, so by the time we got there we were a little late, but he makes up the ground pretty well. Wes overall has gotten so much more responsive, and I've also just figured out a better warm-up strategy for him. So he gets a chance to make a couple cute little turns there. That was a very correct turn on haunches. And what I'm starting to see here is that Wes is trying really, really hard to be a good, correct stopper. So he's not really ever going to slide, nor would I really want him to, because he's 18, and I just don't think that those hocks really need to be sliding around. But you can see he's making an effort to stop correctly and really be over his hocks and his haunches, which is nice. It means that, all of our slow work has really paid off. So that was a good little run for him. I was really, really pleased with that. This was our second boxing run of the day. This was good for a third place tie in the other breed box. We drew a different calf this time. This one is considerably bigger. Had a little bit more run to it, but not a lot. Willie the cowman told me after the class that he saves that one and just turns that one out for the experienced hands that he knows can handle it, because he does try to jump the fence a little bit. So that was very flattering to hear, although I was not 100% sure that I had enough horse for what Willie wanted. But fortunately, Wes stays with this guy pretty good. You can see again, he's really starting to get that good stop where he's sitting down. He's not really ever going to have the real fast cow horse moves, but he's going to be a handy little working horse, as long as you sort of keep him in hand and make sure you don't get too much speed going. It's really easy to sacrifice accuracy for speed with this horse, but he gets in a few pretty good turns in this class, and again, really, really pleased with the way that he's stopping. You can see Old Red there try to look over the fence, but we got him going before he made it all the way over, so we were good to go there in that class. Good boy, Wes. Here's one of our rail classes. We didn't place in either rail class because we did make a few errors that I'll get to later when they come up. But we had what I felt was really, really strong performances for Wes. I feel a ton of improvement in his self-carriage. He's really starting to respond to the basal pressure and actually lift his back a little bit, carry himself correctly, and soften at the pole, which you can see there. And actually, when I watched this video back again, this is what made me think, I think this horse might have some potential as a hunter under saddle as well. So even though his stride, again, is about 14 times as long as anyone else's, because he's actually a giant horse packed into a tiny horse body, I thought he was very, very correct in this class. So overall, I'm really, really pleased with how he's developing. That fancy little buckskin horse behind me, I think, either went on to be first or second. That horse has competed at the Congress. So just that we're in the same ring with horses like that is pretty cool, that I can have my little rescue standardbred against these really nice, probably mid-upper five-figure quarter horses. So that is just kind of neat for us. So at some point here, you'll see, if I come by close enough again on the rail, you'll see I did go with spurs for this first rail class. I just wanted to see, I have been practicing a little bit in spurs at home just to see if that helps to sharpen up my leg aids. A spur can be a really valuable tool if you use it properly. It's not supposed to be used to just make a horse go faster, but it's supposed to help to make your aids more precise. You'll see here as I come around the corner, we got a little too much steam going on that extended trot, and he starts to just bounce into a little bit of a lope there because he's not 100% sure what I want. So again, this is about where I decided that maybe we're not quite ready to show in a spur. When we go to the right, which of course we don't have video of because the phone filled up, I overspurred him, he got a little flustered, and then he ended up losing his balance and reverting back to pace. So as of right now, we're not quite ready to show in a spur. I still practice in them from time to time just to see if it helps to sharpen up the aids and the responsiveness. But Wes at home and Wes at a show, of course, are two different animals, and that's something really important for people to consider as they start getting their standardbreds out to those first shows, is that you might have what might feel almost like a dull horse at home, and a lot of times they're a little more tuned in when you get to the show. And then other horses are vice versa. Some horses are pretty hot at home and pretty quiet at the show. So my other thoroughbred is actually more like that. So we're about to transition into the left lead lope here. And even though he kind of picks his head up, he's not quite strong enough through his core and his back to have much of a headset at the lope, so he still sort of has to heave his front half into it. But then once he gets going, especially to the left, this is a nice, correct 3-beat lope. Again, in a busy rail class, you have to do quite a bit of maneuvering here, and then he trips here and gets a little flustered, but he keeps going. So there's a lot of maneuvering that has to happen, especially when your horse is faster than everybody else's. So it's a lot of looking ahead and trying to sort of predict how it's going to work out. But he handles it really, really well. So it's coming along on the rail for sure. So as I mentioned earlier, one of our goals in June was to keep working on Wes's fitness and balance and strength. And of course we have access to some great fields to ride in. It's actually all we have access to. We don't have a ring, so every day we pretty much just pick a different field to ride in and see what the topography of that field has to offer for us. So this is a hay field that was recently mowed and baled, so you can see it's nice and open. We are working in a little bit of a valley section, so Wes has to go both uphill and downhill and along the hills. So along the hills is kind of an overlooked way to help the horse find better balance. So a lot of us, of course, want to target hill work with our standardbreds to help them develop those riding muscles and help develop a good top line. But it's just as important to go alongside a slope as it is to go up and down. So make sure you're working that in with your horses at home as well. So as you can see here, Wes marches along really, really nice on the flat ground, and he's got a beautiful swinging uphill trot when he's going up the hills. When he hits a downhill section, that's where he really starts to struggle. And trotting down a hill, to be fair, is a fairly complicated maneuver for the horse. They've got to maintain a good cadence, but they've also really got to use those core muscles, both, on their core and then of course on their top line, to hold themselves correctly. So as you can see here, he starts to get a little off balance. He gets into that 4-beat and he's almost pacing. He's not quite sure how to navigate that downhill. And I'm really asking him for quite a lot, considering that he's been under saddle consistently for probably about 6 or 8 months. And he has been driven for about 15 years of his life. So we're trying to undo and reteach an awful lot of muscle memory in a fairly short amount of time. So this little bit of downhill trotting was mostly kind of a fact-finding mission, just to find out really how difficult is this going to be for you, how much benefit are you going to get from me trying to trot you down a hill. So after a couple of minutes, I finally wise up and figure out that it's better for Wes in the long run if I ask him to walk down a hill. He hit the brakes pretty hard there because he's still a little bit in cow horse mode, but that's okay. So I just ask him to come back, walk, and walk correctly, rocking the weight back on his haunches and going down that hill one step at a time. Then when we're hitting a slightly flatter area, then we go back to trot. So I'm going to continue to work this in, not just on downhills. Of course, we work in a lot of upward and downward transitions on the flat as well. I think I went over some of that in some previous videos. All those transitions, if you're doing them correctly with as little upward and downward aid as possible from you as the rider, is really going to help you and your horse get, first of all, a better communication connection, but of course also to help that horse find his top line and learn how to carry himself. So you're just taking those flat work exercises and putting them onto a hill is all we're doing here. If you guys look closely, you might realize I am riding English for about the first time in maybe 10 years. It's been a while. I dusted off my tall boots from college, and turns out they still fit. The English saddle I had sort of molding around in my tack room fits Wes really nicely. And we're driving all the way to New Jersey in a couple of weeks for the Standardbred National Show, so I figured, hey, why not? This horse has a beautiful trot. I think ranch horse and hunter under saddle actually have a lot more in common than people think. A lot of people think ranch horse is just another Western class, but I think the way that these horses move is actually much more similar to a hunter under saddle. So we are going to give the English classes a try. In a couple slides, I'll post my tentative class schedule for nationals so you guys can come see Western Flash in action, but I do have him in, I think, 5 English classes on Saturday. So, yep, we are going to get our money's worth out of that trip all the way across New York State to New Jersey. So we figured, why not? If we're going all the way there, we'll give it a go. And I do think he makes a cute little rookie hunter. So, yeah, thanks in advance to all the friends who are loaning me some other pieces of English tack to round out our outfit. But you guys can look forward to seeing Western Flash doing it all at the National Show. So in July, we're just going to continue to work on fitness. I don't like to cram. I don't think it's good for horses to try to cram in a ton of training right before the show. So we'll just sort of keep carrying on as we do, long trots up these hills and enjoying our little friend Western Flash.